BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL, and much more. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline. The game starts here.
This shit feel like ain't 7. Put lines on through my ass. Wake up in the morning, count my blessings. Feel like heaven. This shit feel like ain't 7.
Welcome to the Money Down, the Believe Network, presented by BetOnline.ag. Today we have NBC college football analyst Joshua Perry kicking it with us tonight. It is college football playoff season too, so we'll definitely get into that at some point. But whenever we have guests on, we like to take it back to the beginning. So take us back to Columbus, Ohio. What made you choose Ohio State, 4-star recruit? I'm sure you was a big linebacker. I went up against you now, so I know a lot of schools was after you. So what led you to Ohio State?
Man, it's crazy. Appreciate y'all having me, first off. It's crazy. The days of the big linebacker are gone for right now. But I do think it's going to make a comeback because the running backs are making a comeback. We all know this game goes on a pendulum. I grew up in Columbus, so it felt like it was the only decision that I could really make. I started my recruitment off early. I started getting recruited my sophomore year in high school, and I kind of had this vision of, if I'm going to be a scholarship athlete, if I can't go to a school like Ohio State where I feel like I can pursue a championship, then I'm looking at how can I get the best degree for somebody else's money. So Notre Dame, Northwestern, Duke, Vanderbilt, Stanford. But it happened that Ohio State came knocking. I got down on campus. I got to know people, felt like the right fit for me. I ended up going. Interestingly enough, my senior year in high school was when the whole Tattoo-gate scandal happened.
Yep.
So my guy Jim Tressel resigned, and Luke Fickell interim year. Love my dude Luke Fickell. Then in comes Urban Meyer. So I'm an early enrollee now in Urban's first offseason. I'm on campus for like 5 days. Urban's like, Perry, pull me aside. I'm like, oh man, he must be watching me work out, whatever. He's like, I got to tell you right now, I don't think you're big enough. I don't think you're fast enough. I don't think you're strong enough. I don't think you're tough enough. He's like, I don't know if you're going to make it here, and just walked away. And so that was like it was crazy. It was crazy. That was my initial experience with Urban Meyer. We got a great relationship now. Everything worked out. But all of that to say that, like, even through all the trials and tribulations, I felt like Ohio State was my place, and certainly glad that I got to finish out my career there.
Speaking of Urban Meyer, I mean, obviously some people got mixed reviews on him. Obviously, he's a great college football coach.
Winner.
Won a bunch of championships. He's a winner. You shared a little bit of your experience. Talk about, how that relationship grew from, that early enrollee status to you making it all the way to being a senior. How did you guys build that relationship?
I think it's, relationships are built through trust. And I think that I had to really earn the trust of my coach. And I could remember my freshman year when it was Jim Tressel and Luke Fickell recruiting my class, 2012 class. We had 2 linebackers committed, and then Urban takes over to finish off the class, and he recruits 3 more linebackers because he didn't think the 2 of us originally could play. And I remember the depth in our room was not very good my freshman year. So I ended up playing a ton on special teams and even got to rotate at linebacker. And I had to earn trust. When I first went out there, he's like, I don't know if we can keep putting this kid out here. But it was the practice reps. It was the weight room. It was the development. It was really kind of proving that. And through that, I started to earn his trust. Once that started to happen, I think the guard really dropped for him and myself, where I felt more comfortable. I felt like I could approach him a little bit more. Started learning about him, started learning about what makes him tick and what he really can do and had done for players up to that point. And I was really fortunate that we got to that spot. By the time I was a junior, I was a full-time starter. I was one of his guys. Like, he trusted me. He started, empowering me to become more of a leader. And then by the time my senior year comes around, I become a captain there. And it's like one of his trusted few from that class. And that spins off into a relationship where we're close right now. I talk to him, probably once a week, every couple of weeks, just to catch up on certain things. But it's that evolution, but it really starts from a standpoint of he didn't recruit me, so I was a stranger to him. He was a stranger to me, and we really had to develop a trust between one another.
You know what?
I want to. Oh,
No, I was just gonna ask back. Like at the beginning, you talked about Urban. Having that conversation, him telling you weren't strong enough, big enough, fast enough. I feel like we came up in a time where that's tough love, and we could take that and we could use that as fuel and motivation. But nowadays, you tell a kid that you could really hurt their confidence. What was that like for you? Obviously, I felt like from hearing it and from seeing what you've been able to do. Big Ten, all Big Ten and national champion, being a starter, of that national championship team. Like, what was that like for you when you heard that?
It was really interesting. I say it all the time. I think that was what I needed. I was 17 years old at the time, and I was good at everything that I did. I was a great football player. I was good on the basketball team. I was all state in track, really good student. Like, I was good at everything I did. And so I needed somebody probably to tell me that I wasn't good at something, to really just reset my mind and to tell me what it would take to be successful. And I can remember calling my dad right after that and being like, Dad, I don't know if this is the place for me. And he looked right at me, unlike what happens a lot of times nowadays where you can't even have that conversation with kids right now. But, they call their parents and their parents are like, all right, well, we had an NIL offer from this school. This other school liked you. Like, we could get up out of here. Right. My dad said, you made a commitment to them. You signed on that dotted line. And, like, you made a decision that this is what you want to do. You got to see it through. He said, you got to figure it out. And it's not going to be easy. But if it's worth doing, it should be difficult. And that was the end of that. And so I had to reframe my mind to lean into doing hard things because things hadn't been hard up to that point. It's just the way that it was. And I thought that was as informative for me, just like, developing into a grown man who can function in society as anything else.
Sure.
Yeah, so we've all, played in college football, played in rivalry games from the Buckeye State, right? Talk to us and give us a scoop on how it is when you got to deal with Michigan. We know, I don't like to use the word hate a lot, but obviously y'all rivalry is a little bit more, is deeper than just a rivalry. So just talk to us from a player standpoint, and especially being from, that city, how that hate flow through y'all that y'all got for Michigan.
It's crazy. And I'll say this. I think my best perspective on that rivalry has come in the last 4 seasons where Ohio State has not won that game. Because I moved to Ohio when I was 6 years old, I think like 2000 or whatever it was. Ohio State had been basically on a run in that game since that point, right? So I'm watching a lot of Buckeyes wins. I'm feeling good about it. And there is like this hate and this vitriol. But when you're winning, like, why am I going to spend all this energy hating, right? But there were people who were telling me like, well, JP, it ain't always like this. Like, the Cooper years, the 90s, like, Ohio State wasn't winning the rivalry back in the 90s. Like, it feels different. And I got to experience that. From a fan standpoint, there is no love lost. Like, it's bitter. Just Michigan people don't bother me that week. Like, I really don't want to talk to you. I really don't want to deal with you, etc. From the former player's standpoint, some of the best relationships that I have formed since I left Ohio State have been with former Michigan players because I feel like we have something in common where we got to play in one of the most storied rivalries in any sport. And it's a funny thing, but like you do it with former Ohio State players and you do it with former Michigan players, but you ask them how many times they won in that game. And that's like the conversation starter. And then the stories start flowing from there. So it's really multifaceted for me where it's like being a kid from Columbus. I don't care about Michigan, all that other stuff. But like I meet the Michigan men, though, and I've got a lot of respect for them.
No, that's most definitely. And I got to bring it up. These two were a part of that game. And
come on, bro, nah. Yeah. Hey, I was gonna let you know we cutting this now.
Hey, listen, man, come on.
We cutting this now.
Why are we gonna do all this right now? I'm making friends right now.
Hey, it's all right. We got to talk about it. We got to hash it out. Sometimes you got to talk about it to get them emotions out. What was y'all mindset going into that game? Because man, That was the only game I ever bet one of my teammates on, and after that, I ain't bet no more after that. I said, yeah, I'm finished. So what was y'all mindset going into that game? You had, obviously, Cordell stepping in there. You got a third-string quarterback or so have it. Y'all went out there and dominated. How did y'all approach that game?
I got to tell you, man, we had no idea how to approach that game. Y'all remember this. 2014 was the first year of the 4-team college football playoff.
Yep.
So we lost to Virginia Tech early in the year. We were a preseason, probably, top 5 or top 10 team. Braxton got hurt in training camp. So we roll out. Our first game's on the road. We play Navy. We win that game. Then with JT Barrett playing quarterback. Then we come home. We lose our home opener to Virginia Tech. And so after that, we dropped to like 22. And it's just a slow build throughout the season. We had some big games in there. Went to Penn State, won a couple of overtimes. We played Michigan State on the road, top 10 victory in that one. We had Minnesota as a top 25 team. Like there were some stepping stones. We got to Michigan. We ended up winning that game. So we're sitting there at the end of the season, 11-1. We're playing a conference championship game, but we were number 6 at the time. And we didn't know how much they were going to give a damn about a conference championship. You had TCU and I think Baylor that year was really good as well that were kind of sitting there. And so it's like we didn't have these plans of coming in and saying like, oh, we're gonna put 59 up on them, like, we're gonna shut them out, whatever the case is. Like our approach was, let's just play the best game we think we can play and leave it in the hands of the committee. And like, not to rub it in, but best game for us ended up being like ridiculous. Ezekiel Elliott was on point. Devin Smith on point. Like defense was, and Melvin Gordon I played with in San Diego. Got a ton of respect for dude. Like he was an awesome teammate to have in a rookie year where I felt like I struggled a ton. He was awesome. But like Heisman finalist, and we shut the offense down that day. And we had no idea that any of that was going to matter. We just wanted to go out there and execute. It ended up mattering, and I feel like we ended up making the committee look good too by finishing the job at the end of the year. But like, there was no expectation. There was none of this like, oh, go in there and, kick him in the dirt. It's like, no, just like win a Big Ten championship. That was it.
I ain't never been smoked like that in my life.
It's a person on this podcast.
Hey!
Listen, that gave a historic pregame speech. I mean,
hey, I'm talking like
JP,
for the history books.
How your blood boiling, like we got us blowed out. So Warren was taking off the speeches after that. But
we ain't had no speeches after that. I don't even know what you're talking about.
That is hilarious.
But I don't even like to think about that because that was a dark actually game and like play. So that's erasing. And we don't gotta go back to that no more. That's in the past. But I want to talk to you about the run y'all went on because obviously y'all beat the brakes off of us. Then y'all play Bama, and I want to say the Sugar Bowl, and then after that, right, a Bama team that's when Bama was Bama, and then after that, y'all go to the Nash in Dallas in the first 4-team national championship, and y'all beat Oregon and a Heisman winner, Marcus Mariota. Just talk about the run that y'all had to be feeling and the confidence y'all had in that building, because that's an incredible run to beat those two teams, especially at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge for us. And in that run from Big Ten championship, semifinal, final, we faced all the 3 Heisman finalists in that run. And so it's like, not only did we go through really good teams, but we also had to face really good individual players that could hurt you if you're not very careful. So we're playing Alabama, and it's funny, man. Urban Meyer was the master of psychology and motivation. So he did not call a watch party for the bracket release. He said, watch it on your own, and I'll send out a message and let you know what we're going to do after that. Because I don't think he wanted any cameras in there if we didn't make it in. I think that was his approach. Yep. So we make it in. He's like, team meeting 2:30. We pull up to the facility, and he's like, man, I got to tell you. He said, I spent a lot of years coaching in the SEC. He's like, I know Nick Saban. I know Alabama. And he's like, guys, I'm not quite sure that we're ready for this challenge. He's like, I don't know. He's like, that's real football. Like, what you thought you were playing is not, that's real. We're talking Nick Saban, Alabama. And it's like, damn. Now, all the while, Urban in 2012, his first year, he had just gotten done with ESPN. So first year in coaching, we had a bowl ban, so we couldn't go to a bowl game. He goes down to the national championship between Alabama and Notre Dame. and he tells this wild story about Notre Dame. He watched Notre Dame warm up. He goes down to the other side of the field, watches Alabama warm up, and he's watching the defensive line. He's like, they're shooting their hands, inside hands. It's violent. They're controlling, whatever. He's like, they're just really detailed. Everybody's moving in unison. There's nothing out of place. And he's like, we don't look like that. And so he sent us a text from the field and was like, we're chasing Alabama. And he called it the chase. And if you ever see the facility, there's a banner in there that said the chase from the national championship year. But he planted this seed in our mind that we weren't anywhere close to where we needed to be. And so we get into our prep, and it's practice reps, fundamentals, all the different things. And, the next week passes by, and he's like, I think we're getting closer, but I'm just not seeing it yet. We go, the next week passes by, and he's like, if we keep putting together days, we might have a shot. Then game week comes around, and he's like, guys, we gotta be at our best, but I think we can beat these guys. And then finally the day of the game, and I think it might have been Wisconsin that year. Who did y'all play in the bowl game? Auburn. Because he said Wisconsin beat Auburn from the big bad SEC in the bowl game. No offense. Look at what y'all just did to Wisconsin. We're going to beat Alabama's ass. And that was the final thing he said before we left the locker room. And that was
that was the motivation. See
it was the setup. But check this out, though. Urban used to do this thing where we would go out on the field for warm-ups, and he was like, you guys got bigger necks and your biceps are bigger. Your arms have more veins. He's like, you guys look better than every team in America. So typically in pregame, we'd be doing our warm-up. I'd look around and be like, yeah, we do look better. Man, we ran out that tunnel. I'm watching the Alabama boys. I'm like, they look.
I ain't gonna lie. So I think we played Bama the following year in 2015. I ain't gonna lie. I came out the tunnel. We played them in Dallas. I seen the kicker. I was like, damn. Them boys, I will say that them boys built.
Everybody. Different.
Hey,
yes.
Hey, they definitely different. You see, like Payne, that little interview in the locker room, like they used to psych themselves out too. Like all that hard work they put. I'm sure y'all did the same thing in Ohio State. Like that mental, toughness y'all went through the week. By the time the game rolled around, y'all trying to take it out on whoever y'all playing against. So I definitely see. I mean, we worked hard, at Wisconsin and everything. But I will say, watching some of those videos from the other schools, them dudes mentally look like they on a completely different thing.
But it's like, that's, to me, that is one of the biggest differences. Like football, as y'all well know, is such a mental game. It's like all of us physically are gifted. All of us physically can do it. But I think the way that you are prepped mentally to approach, and I don't want to make light of actual warfare, but what is warfare to us? The mental aspect of it is so huge.
Yeah, it definitely is. So after Ohio State, winning national championships and being a good player in the Big Ten, you get drafted, in the 4th round. What was that moment like for you getting drafted, to the San Diego Chargers?
It was a huge moment because I felt like it was, kind of ascending this mountain of different goals that you wanted to achieve. It's like, become a Division I player. Then once you get there, it's like, all right, I need to be a starter. I want to be all Big Ten. I want to chase a championship. And then finally you want to become a pro. It was awesome. When I got to San Diego, I felt like I was so disconnected from, grew up in the Midwest. Now I'm on the West Coast in the new locker room. I really went through that rookie hump hard, and it was crazy. And I felt like at times it was a little bit of a letdown because it was so business oriented. And I was also on a terrible football team. We were really bad. And our head coach was an interesting bird. I remember one game we're losing, and he's on his hands and knees on the sideline praying during the game, and it's a lasting memory that I'll have from that year.
They ain't did this on TV.
It's like,
it gotta be on TV.
What are we doing? But it's one of those where it's like, you come from a certain place and you have a certain expectation of how things are run, and you go to a place that at that time was dysfunctional, and you got to adapt not only to being a rookie in the league and trying to get your footing, learn a new playbook, but it's also there's a lot going on here in the background. And even if it's not right there in front of you, you can certainly feel that.
I always like to ask, right? Like, grew up, obviously love football, play football your whole life. Rookie year, when you step foot in the league, who was that first player, offense, defense, same team, different team, that you was like, damn, that's JJ Watt, or damn, that's, who was somebody for you that you was like, that's cool to be on the same field as that person?
It was Gates. Now, I played with Antonio Gates. Dude, I mean, he was just a cool ass dude, but ridiculous player. And at this stage, he's an old dude. And so he's like, veterans rest, right? Like, these guys ain't practicing that hard. And I remember he would go out there, though, and there would be certain reps that he would want. Like, you get the script and he's like, I need to see this route against certain coverage, whatever.
Yep.
The way this dude was just like so crafty, the way he could set up a route. And I'm like, he ain't even running fast, but he's wide open. And it's like, it was for me to watch that, because it's the evolution of a player where it's like, you are a supreme athlete at one point, but then you've got to become a supreme tactician, which is exactly what he did. And he was so good at it. Like, just watching him practice in the detail of how he just set guys up, I was impressed.
Most definitely. And then, after your career in the NFL, everybody's transition is definitely different. Like, we all talk about it on here. Some guys, easily transition into a new career. Some guys, it takes a year, some takes 5 years, sometimes it takes 10 years, because football has been a part of our life for so long. What was that transition like for you? Did you immediately jump into the media, or how did that come about?
It's an interesting thing. I struggled with the transition because I was banged up coming out of the league. So I felt like part of it was my decision, but I almost felt like I was forced to do it because I knew playing football was not the best thing for me anymore. Yeah. So I had trouble with that, but I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And actually, when I left the league, I went and started taking real estate classes, and I became a licensed real estate agent in the state of Ohio. And I started doing that. But as anybody in that business will tell you, you don't make any money for like 6 months because you're not doing deals. Nobody wants to do a deal with the new guy who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And so I'm over here like, all right, how can I, get a little bit of cash flow going while I'm starting to get this thing rolling? So I started doing radio shows on the station in Columbus, and then I started doing some local news broadcasts with the sports department. And I, found it was something I enjoyed. As y'all could tell, I could talk for days. So it's something that naturally comes to me. And then a year later, I got approached by Big Ten Network. They asked if I had a reel. We threw something together, sent it out, got an audition with them, and it kind of went from there. So being in this space, which I'm full-time media now, was not something that I had necessarily planned on doing. But I think it met that point of something that I'm passionate about, which is football, and particularly college football, and something that I feel like I can really enjoy, which is being on camera and doing the media thing.
No, most definitely. And then obviously we got to get into the college football playoff now. College football playoffs going on. After the first week, people were kind of upset. The second week I thought was a little bit better, a little bit more competitive, had some good games and whatnot. But now we're down to the Final Four. We got good matchups. We got Notre Dame versus Penn State, and your alma mater, you got Ohio State versus Texas. What are you most looking forward to? Starting tomorrow night as we're recording.
Well, first off, I think that to your point, these are really good matchups, and I was disenchanted with the 12 team. I feel like it could be 8, and we could have achieved what we needed to, but the money people, the
I was gonna say, a lot of people say they want more.
Yeah, I know that's that's where we're headed though. That's where we're headed because and listen, I'm never going to be mad about more college football games, but I also don't think we need to lie to people and tell them that the games have to be big for them to be interested. Like, I just like watching because I like watching. Neither here nor there. Notre Dame, Penn State is intriguing to me because I think that they're built similarly, but they get the job done differently. Shout out to both of the coaches. Marcus Freeman's one of my Buckeye brothers. I've known him since I was in high school. He was a GA at Ohio State when I was getting recruited. And James Franklin, 2 black coaches First time we will see a black coach in FBS national championship. Whoever wins, that's a
Crazy.
hell of a milestone. And so I'm glad that we get to witness that. But they both want to run the ball. They want to play great defense. The approach to it is a little bit different. On offense, Penn State can be a little bit more dynamic. Tyler Warren, phenomenal. They got the two-headed monster at running back, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, Drew Aller, when he's on point, he's really spinning that thing.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, is Riley Leonard running the ball? Is Jeremiah Love running the ball? Is Jadarian Price running the ball? Like, that is what they do. And so I think it's going to be intriguing from the standpoint of probably not a ton of points. I think drives and points are going to be at a premium in that game. But I'm also a dude who played on defense. So I kind of like a rock fight, and I like a slugfest. So I think there's a little bit of beauty in that. Ohio State, Texas could be fireworks, right? It depends on what Texas looks like on defense, what Ohio State looks like on defense. Both of these offenses, when they're at their best, two of the best in America. Both the defenses, when they're at their best, two of the best in America. So it just kind of depends on what shows up. But, we could get big fireworks in that one. I'd love it.
Yeah,
I think for that game, it's all on the quarterbacks, right? Throughout the whole year, Will Howard, that's been a question mark for Ohio State's offense. And then the same thing with Quentin Ewers in Texas. If Quentin come out rolling, that offense is going to be rolling. If Will come out rolling, that offense is going to. So, like you said, I think we can get fireworks, but it's all dependent on the QB play, how they come out.
And I'll say, for Texas, they have to run the ball. Their offense is different when they can't establish some type of run game. They played Georgia twice, didn't run it well, lost both of those games. Against Arizona State, didn't run it well, almost lost that game. Yep. Against Vanderbilt, they ran it 34 times for 100 yards, was not an efficient running day. That was a tight game for them. I think they got to start it with running the ball because Quinn Ewers, when he's got the full menu, that's when he can start to manipulate different things. That's where he could be more comfortable in the pocket. When he's under pressure and he's got to be in straight drop back mode, that man cannot spin the rock. And to your point, for Will Howard, love the competitive nature. He'll do some dumb stuff back there. Once a game, you can count on him to make a play and be like, bro, what are we doing? So, he just can't have too many of those types of plays.
Yeah, I think Quinn makes more of those plays, though. Quinn, I feel like early in the year, he was a little bit more consistent. After he got that little ankle injury or whatnot, he's been a little shaky. But, their offense
I don't think he wants to get hit standing in the pocket. Just as a guy who, played defensive football, I would look at him and be like, we got to touch him early.
Yeah, got to get to him, which y'all definitely can do that. JTT, then you got Sawyer. y'all defense been on point, especially during all year they've been on point. But in the playoffs, man, watching that Tennessee game, they were smacking.
They were hitting.
Bro, watching that Oregon game, they were really ranked them boys.
I blame everybody on ESPN and all these people that were saying Firewatch. James, Tennessee was a team that you picked. And
I was high on them. I thought Tennessee would go in there and get a win.
I get it.
It looked like Tennessee didn't belong at all, and all that stirred from that crap they was talking from that Michigan game. So,
yo, you know what? I got a question for you on that one. So, Breeze just mentioned Tennessee didn't look like they don't belong. How do you decide that? How you personally, how would you decide that? Was it the 12 teams that are in? You felt like that's what it should have been? Do you feel like other teams should have been in? How do we decide moving forward, who belongs and who doesn't?
It's a really good question. I feel like we have done this thing as a football viewing public where we will try to justify our positions with numbers and data and analytics. That's not how I look at football. That's not how the game is played. I watch the damn tape, right?
Sure.
So for Alabama, I'll just use them as the example because I know a lot of people were politicking for them. We watched what happened in the bowl game against Michigan. We also watched what happened against Vanderbilt, and we watched what happened against Oklahoma. Didn't score an offensive touchdown in that football game. All right, so you take a team like that who's a 3-loss team, so they would be on that bubble. Instead of saying, hey, let's look at strength of schedule, which is a very obviously flawed metric because there's not enough control in terms of when I say control, I mean data points of out-of-conference games to understand what the actual strength of schedule would be when you're comparing teams in different conferences, right? It's a bad metric for that. I would just flip on the tape and I would say, okay, what does Jalen Milroe look like? Well, if they're running the ball and he's running it, he looks really good. If not, he looks like a pretty bad quarterback. If they're on the road, he actually is a bad quarterback. Like they'd have to go on the road to play in a first round game. Like, don't think they should be in there. I could watch Indiana and I could say that they've been really good except for when they play a team that is Ohio State. Well, now we're starting to learn, well, Tennessee didn't look that good, but I think Tennessee's probably still a good team. And Oregon didn't look that good. They were number one team in the country. And maybe it's not so much about Indiana. Maybe it was more about Ohio State. And by the way, Indiana's only other loss was to Notre Dame. And Notre Dame might be the best team in the country. They could win the national title. So the point that I'm trying to make here is I think if you watch football without an agenda, you could probably get to the teams that should be in the field. And maybe they're not the teams that were ranked the highest in the preseason. And maybe they're not the teams that have the highest talent composite in terms of how talented their roster is. But they're teams that play football the right way. And I can confidently say some of the teams that were left out, I don't think played football better than teams that got in. My biggest issue with it is, if we're going to be honest, Alabama didn't deserve to be in. Indiana, SMU probably weren't good enough to be in. And that's why I keep saying that 12 teams is too many.
Yeah, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense what you said.
I was gonna say, but that's tough. My bad, James. I was about to say that's tough though, because like you're asking a committee that a lot of people probably haven't played the game, and like people watch the game differently when you haven't played the sport, right?
Yes.
No offense to the committee and things like that, but like they don't watch the game the same way as we watch the game, right? Like we watch to see. Go ahead.
That's why there needs to be more of us on the committee,
for sure.
Right? Like, and I understand why the committee is comprised the way that it is, but I think we need more football watchers on the committee, at least to give an input on what's going on the field, right? Like to explain how things are actually happening for each team, what they do well, what they don't do well as a team, outside of what the data tells you, because I can pick stats that'll back up anything that I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think one of my things is to always bring it up. There shouldn't be any preseason rankings. I feel like it should be like 4 or 5 weeks into the year that you can maybe start rolling out rankings, because who knows who's actually good before the year starts. So why is this team number one automatic? We don't know how good they are actually. Like I love Florida State and company, like that may happen. So I think that's something they should do away with. I know that makes for ratings, and everything when you have this team's a preseason ranked number one versus this team was a preseason ranked this and that. But I think that's one thing that they should definitely do away with.
If I'm not mistaken, the main two things are like prior year performance and like recruiting class, right? Like if I'm not mistaken,
but you can't really measure.
But you can't really measure. That's what I'm saying.
I think something that they do have to adjust, and I don't know how they're gonna do it, but this whole bye thing. Because while though I do think it was going to be tough for Oregon to beat y'all, like I always say, it's hard to beat a team twice, right?
Right.
But I just think when you watch that game and you talk about it from a football's player's mindset, it looked like Oregon just came out like they was still in Eugene, and I just think that and every team, and honestly, all 3 teams or 4 teams that got a bye.
Yep.
Started slow. So I think that bye week or however the schedule is, it has to be adjusted in favor of a team to play, because Ohio State played Tennessee the week before and they looked like they was on one. So you knew they was going to be in Pasadena on one. It wasn't going to be no starting slow. So I think they got to fix that whole bye week situation.
I tend to agree with you. And I know people have talked about the amount of time between when Oregon played last and then when they played Ohio State. And I think there's a misconception about the time. So between Ohio State's last game against Michigan, when they played Tennessee, it was 21 days. Between Oregon's last game's Big Ten championship and when they played Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, it was 25 days, right? So there was like a 4-day difference there. So the idea of, it was such a long layoff that they came out and I don't agree with that. The reason the bye is a problem to me is you let a team like Ohio State get a warm-up and then Oregon's got to play cold. That's where it's a problem. Coming in facing that team cold is never going to be in your favor. Yeah. It's just not going to be in your favor after they had the warm-up game and just watch that tape back like, oh damn, we can really do this. It's a tough structure. Like, I think there are so many flaws. In the part that bothers me about the issues that arise here, crowning a champion should be the most important thing in the sport. Yep. There should be nothing more important than crowning a champion in college football. And I feel like we've made this experiment of our mechanism, the playoff, for crowning a champion.
Yeah.
I got a question for you too. How do you feel about the seeding thing? Because if you look at the seeding, right, like Penn State really, I don't want to say the easiest path, but
it was. It's no disrespect, but it was.
Okay, we can keep it a bean. So Penn State got the easiest path.
SMU, Boise State. I mean,
and then you get Oregon, who again all year has been the number one seed, and I gotta either run into Ohio State or Texas. That's just crazy to me. So how do you feel the seeding thing worked out?
It was bad. It's bad. And like it's I don't think Penn State fans are real sensitive when you talk about their path to the Final Four. Like it's not a knock on Penn State. Like that's not anti-Penn State. It's just the truth. Like they had an easier path than the team that beat them in the Big Ten championship. There's a problem with that. Like, and no, again, not to disrespect these people. People feel sensitive about their teams. I get it. Arizona State did not deserve a bye. Boise State did not deserve a bye. We can't act like we should give the conference champs a bye, because that operates under the assumption that each conference is balanced and they're all as good as one another, and they're not. Right? Like, realistically, it probably should have been some combination of, and Notre Dame can't get a bye in this scenario because they don't play in a conference, but Georgia, Texas, Penn State, Oregon should have been probably teams that got byes, because they would have been probably the four best teams. Somewhere in there, you would put Notre Dame right after that, and then you would put Ohio State right after that. So in reality, like, Ohio State is a 6 seed instead of the 8 seed. So they're not running into Oregon when they run into them. And you end up getting a more balanced bracket that way. So yeah, they gotta do something about the seeding. The issue is when they try to address that conversation, which they're gonna start it the day before the national championship, or maybe the day of, they have their meeting down there. The ACC, the Big 12, and the Group of Five are gonna throw a fit. They're gonna say, well, why should we change? And my response back to them would be, well, why should we let you in our damn playoff in the first place if I was the Big Ten and the SEC?
Yeah.
And then we kind of go from there.
I mean, yeah, you look at the performances.
But what do you think it would take for, a Group of Five team like a Boise State or whatever, like a Arizona State, for them to earn a bye? Would they have to be undefeated versus a SEC team having like 2 losses or anything like that? Or should they never be put in that situation based on the conference that they're in?
No, I would say never. I'm very much a fan of you earn it on the field by the way that you play. That year where Cincinnati got in, I think it was 2021, where they got into the college football playoff, I had no problem with them getting in there. I think that they deserve to be there. And that would be a situation where if, Boise State this year was Cincinnati and they were one of the top 4 teams, then yeah, go ahead and give them the bye, right? Yep. So I think it's really hard when we try to sell this playoff. Some people say, well, we're trying to crown a champion by results on the field. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't really seed them necessarily by what happened on the field. That doesn't line up to me.
Sure. And got to talk to you a little bit about NIL, the NIL culture of what's going on now. Obviously there's kids, moving on left and right based on money or this and that. We have a kid at Wisconsin, from where we're from in South Florida, dealing with an issue, that he got his NIL money and now he's trying to transfer out, like a week or 2 later. So what are you
They getting legals into it and everything.
Getting lawyers and everything involved on the whole situation. What's your thoughts on the whole NIL situation and what they can do to kind of regulate it going forward?
I mean, they're just we need rules, and we need adults to start being adults in a way. But I feel like we've also, we created the environment where the kids feel like they can behave like this. Like, it's a feedback loop. So the first kid that comes in and says, I need 1.5 mil to transfer, and the school that does the deal or the school that tampers and offers it, like, you're the reason why. It's a feedback loop. So we got to get that above board. With the house settlement, they're talking about a clearinghouse for NIL deals. Anything over $600 would have to go through this clearinghouse, and then the clearinghouse would have the opportunity to assess if it was a fair market value type deal. And if it's not, you go back and renegotiate, whatever. This is what I like. I like that because I believe within my heart of heart that student athletes deserve the opportunity to make money. We played in an era where, fortunate that we got our education, all that, there's money on the table for your boy. In Columbus, Ohio, a kid local won a national title, led the team in tackles that year. I'd have been rolling in it. Didn't have the opportunity. So I feel like they have to. We're in the right spot. We're just doing it the wrong way. And the wrong way is just paying guys to try to get them on campus and guaranteeing them money for basically no work, right? Like, that's a weird thing to me. But it's out of control. One of my boys was a coach, and he was telling me, kids showed up, and he was at a group of 5 school, mind you. Kids showed up. He said, "Coach, what can y'all do for me?" And he's like, "We don't have that much money. Like, we're a group of 5."
Yeah.
The kid said, "Well, did you watch my tape?" And he said, "Brother, I don't care what the tape says. We ain't got no money.
Regardless.
We've gotten with this thing."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's bad. I help out at NIU, Northern Illinois University. Currently, we're a group of 5, like, type of school.
Mountain West.
Mountain West now. I mean, now to the Mountain West, but it's like you see it every day. It's like, kids show up, think they deserve this, or they may getting poached from another school, getting tampered with, and we ain't got the money to be paying nobody no $100,000, not even $100,000, or let alone $1 million. So, look, if somebody offer these kids $700K to go to Texas Tech or go to this and that, it's like we can't really do that.
Let me tell you how crazy this is, though. I talked to people, and I was asking about payroll, and I'm gonna give you an example. A cornerback 3 on a high Division I roster, $200K quarterly to be the third cornerback, the third cornerback.
Insane.
I need the back pay, y'all boys.
Wow. Hey, we all need it.
But it's, it's hard for me to say that that's a legitimate value.
Yeah,
and I don't think we're doing young people favors at the end of the day, because wouldn't it be sad if you show up to college, you get the AMG, you got the Benz rolling through campus, got money in your pockets, quarterly check arrives, $100K, $250K, $425, $500,000, quarterly check arrives. Something happens, whatever, go to the league. You're like most people who end up playing in the league. You get your 2-3 years and you're done. And then you got to go to Chase Bank and get a real job. And you thought $250K. No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah.
It's like, but the best part of your life ended up being when you were a 19-year-old in college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what's so crazy though, because and I look at it from a different perspective for the simple fact that some guys aren't going to get that chance, right, to get to the league.
I agree.
And be able, so I do think that, like, I have no problem with paying kids whatever that number is, what they deserve, but at the same time, it needs to be some type of financial class or financial guidance to be able to literacy to help to understand that, right? Like, JP, I'm gonna give you this $250K, and you got to understand that Uncle Sam gonna take his half, and moms and family gonna want this and gonna want flights, and you can buy that big body Benz right now.
Yeah.
But you gonna feel it. You gonna feel it in a couple of years if you get if you don't get an opportunity to go to the league, because you have players, right, that are super good in college, and whatever the case may be, undersized or issues off the field, whatever the case may be, where they don't pan out in the league when they should. But I think if you are allowed to make a little bit of bread in college, that can somewhat, if you get the right right group of kids, can set themselves up for after college.
I'm 100% with you, and I agree on the financial literacy, the education part. Like you got to learn it as soon as you start getting money in your pocket. I guess the part that I'm talking about is like the freshman who shows up on campus and expects, $600,000, and I need 10 tickets to each game, and you got to pay for my mom and dad's flights, and you got to get them a car service from the airport. You are out of your freaking mind.
Yeah,
like that is outrageous.
It is.
But I played with
like
JT Barrett, right? JT Barrett, Ohio State legend.
Yeah.
Was not an NFL quarterback. Like that dude should have been making, a couple million in college.
Sure.
But you know when they should start learning that though is in the again to the financial literacy piece. Just like utilize them compliance meetings y'all have every year, like or at the beginning of every season. Just do multiple of them. Make sure the kids like understand. But yeah, to your point, like there's people that definitely deserve it at this point that just missed it.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
And young homies, if y'all see this, whoever it may be, if y'all ever see this, man, stop buying these damn chains and all this stuff as soon as you please.
At least get something that accrue value over time.
Right. And I understand, me and James Warren, we talk about all the time, the music and the rap, the whole music industry kind of got the younger generation screwed up. But stop paying all these $100,000 on chains because there's no value in it. When you really gotta lean on something to get value out of it.
It's funny, man. They're like, I tell young dudes when I see them, I'm like, if you wore fake Gucci and you had a fake chain, nobody would know because you're rich already. So they just assume it's real. Right? Like you can have the look, but keep your money in your pocket.
We be talking about that. Chad Johnson be talking about that all the time.
Yeah, but he still be spending his bread. Don't let him fool
I bet he do. He ain't fooling me.
He from Miami.
I said he talk about it.
I love that he talking about it, but he definitely spend that. He posted a picture the other day, had chrome hearts on, Lamborghini in the background, all that. But which he's making great money, so he could do all that. He's making plenty of money, once he's done. But I definitely think there needs to be like some type of union or a PA or something that reviews all these, these so-on-so contracts with sponsors or with the schools and collectives and everything. And I don't think any freshman should be able to be promised anything before they get on the campus.
I agree.
It should be, you sign here for this, you want to go to this school, then it should be almost, I think it almost should be incentive based. However you perform out there this year, boom, you make this amount of money. Yeah. Other than that, you ain't seeing squat. I mean, at least that's how I would do it if I was a head coach. Like, hey, you come out here, you rush for 1,000 yards, I got $500K for you. The quarterback.
I'm gonna be honest with you. These days, doing that, you ain't gonna have no recruits.
That's the way it should be.
It should be like that.
You're right, but at the same time, I think you got to let them learn for themselves, right? Like the paycheck's not going to lie to them. Like I could tell them all day long, hey, brother, I don't think you're really like that. But the whole coach is hating. It's like, no, brother, your check is zero. Like you're really not like that. I think as we get into revenue sharing from the universities, we might get to a point where the universities decide to do the rev share on an incentive based manner, whatever it is. And you got to figure out what that looks like to take care of the offensive linemen and guys who maybe don't show up in the stat sheet. But I do think it's, the school's got to pay him. It's like, I'm not paying this dude who, first off, he doesn't go to class and he misses workouts and he doesn't play on Saturdays. I'm not giving him my money. Yeah. Nope. He's already taken one of our scholarships.
Yeah. But you know who really gotta lead, who gotta really start that trend? It's the bigger schools. It's the bigger 100%. Universities. Because you can't be a smaller university and do that. Otherwise, they're just going to take the money at a bigger university. Yeah, as long as the bigger universities continue to shell out that money, they're not going to have to worry about that, right?
Yeah.
And the thing with that, Warren, is too, is, and I agree with you totally 1,000%. But the problem is right, say Ohio State, who is known to have spent the most money like in the receiver room, X, Y, and Z. But you get a kid who wants a certain amount. It's no way Alabama or, I don't know, Ole Miss Jeremiah Smith, right? Say he wanted. There's no way they're telling that kid like,
No, yeah,
nah,
yeah.
I ain't giving you 1.5
I feel
or
that.
2 million or whatever the case it is you want. So that's where I feel
That's
like
a program changer.
Yeah,
They said, Jeremiah, we will give you the whole bank.
and he's deserving.
Hey, speaking of, while we're talking about NIL, you know, I gotta ask everybody this that you know, played at a big time university, and you can keep it a band. I'm gonna say that ahead of time. You know, you mentioned, you know, not being able to flow in the cheese while you were playing, but you were in state, 4-star, big linebacker. I know you had a bunch of offers. Bro, just let us know what they drop on the doorstep, bro. And keep it a band. It's legal now. You're not finna get penalized. They're not gonna take away all Big Ten of your championship. Keep it a band. They drop 500K.
Come on, this is what happens.
Lambo truck.
Dudes come on podcasts and then they get in trouble. This is what happens naturally. We see it all the time. You come on a podcast, next thing you know, you're in hot water. I'm gonna be honest. So, as I mentioned, I grew up 30 minutes away from the Horseshoe. My high school is on this. It's a state highway. It's called Route 23. If you took Route 23 heading straight south, it'll turn into High Street, and you can just keep rolling, and then you make a right turn, and that's where the Horseshoe is. Like, that's how close to campus I grew up. They didn't have to pay me to get me to
We'll talk on the video cut.
If you, I don't know what happened with anybody, but dudes from Georgia, dudes from Florida. I know if I was from there, I wouldn't choose to play in the cold. I know that personally, sure. But I was from right down the street, so it was all love, and now I kind of regret it. Honestly, I probably should have gone somewhere for the money since it's all legal now, but I didn't.
Definitely, we all wish we could have, man.
I want to ask you another question too, JP. What's the and obviously the shoe is probably on there, but what is a stadium that when you sit down at night and you think about and those highlights run through your head about playing college ball? What is a stadium that's an environment you went in and you was like, yeah, I'm hostile, like I'm ready to take this mother over? Like, what was one of those stadiums for you?
Did y'all ever play at Penn State?
Yeah. See, I didn't play there. They played.
Dog, I played there twice at night. They were. Y'all know the Penn State story when we were in college, right? Like, they had just gone through the scandal. They had the huge scholarship reduction. They were garbage. They were terrible. We played there twice at night, and both of those games were entirely way too close. My freshman year we played there, they blocked a punt on us because we couldn't get set and we couldn't hear a snap count, none of that kind of stuff. That game was way too close. And then the year we won the championship, Penn State's like a 5-win team. They take us into 2 overtimes.
Yeah.
Like, it is for the money, and I've covered games there too. Greatest environment that I've ever experienced is going to a whiteout night game at Penn State.
Yeah, it's definitely a great atmosphere. We lost there. Was that my junior year? Penn State beat me. What?
Matt McGloin?
Yeah, Matt McGloin. Then we lost him. And it was the freshman quarterback. Oh man, what's his name? It was Christian Hackenberg. Lost.
Chris Hackenberg.
Yeah. So they definitely have had our number at Wisconsin. At least for me, I lost to them 2 out of 3 times that I played. So I was a big fan of Penn State. That was a place I would have loved to go to, you know, out of high school. They told me they didn't recruit Florida players, so that was at the time that was kind of what it was. I was like,
was that Joe Pa still?
Yeah, Paterno. Yeah. I'm like, whatever, man. I guess. I was like, whatever.
DMV area.
It is what it is, man.
That's funny as hell.
Nah, man. We appreciate you, Joshua, for joining our podcast tonight. That was a dope episode. Appreciate your insight on college football and some of your career in college football and in the league. So appreciate you taking the time out with us, man.
Man, I appreciate y'all having me. This was a blast, man. I really do appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Sir.